Today's video is about genetics. I have mostly heard genetics used as an excuse to not make good choices in their lifestyle. I'll give you diabetes as an example. So patients come to me and they say, "My parents are diabetic, therefore I'm going to be diabetic. There's no point in trying. I might as well just do what I want and take medicines and wait for my inevitable death that comes from diabetic complications." um, they're actually resigned to defeat, and they're making excuses um, to live the life that is leading them to diabetes rather than actually doing anything to get away from it. Now, it might be true that their parents had were diabetics, and if you look back, you can see that diabetes was a disease of the elderly in our country. I mean, and as people got older, they got diabetes. So they would have. When I was in college 20 years back, I would see diabetes in people, type 2 diabetes in people who were in their 60s or starting their 50s. Now and then, the next generation, my parents generation, people started getting diabetes in their 50s and 40s, and in our generation we are seeing it in 30s and 40s, and in the younger generation, my children's generation, and we are seeing them earlier, even in their 20s and 30s. So it diabetes is coming earlier and earlier, and that's not genetics, because our genetics has stayed the same. What has changed is our lifestyle. Now, genetics has an influence. It's like being given a set of tools. You're being given a set of tools when you're born, and the way you maintain those tools and the way you use those tools will then influence how your life, how your health, and what diseases you pick up. So your genetics is actually a loaded gun, and the way you use that loaded gun depends on your lifestyle. So genetics loads the gun, and your lifestyle pulls the trigger, and you can use that lifestyle to either point the gun at your own head or point it at whatever else you want to get rid of. So that's how you should look at genetics. It should not be used as an excuse. So the fact that you're here on this planet now means that your genetics is successful, because humans have been through millions of iterations in genetics, and they've gotten to this point, and only the successful have got to this point. Now, so your genetics is fine. Your genetics is fine. It's your environment and the lifestyle that is the problem right now, and those two things you can change. And so the genes are switched on and switched off based on the influences from your environment, and this process is called epigenetics. So if i have if I have a gene that predisposes me to deposit more fat from the calories I eat, um, I can then resign to it and continue to eat whatever I want and get fat, and then pass on that gene. That environmental influence is also passed on. So if I'm going to have a child, and if I take care of myself in the preconception period, and I am in good shape when I have the child, that includes the father too, not just the mother. Then the child gets better genetics because their genes are now switched on for a healthier lifestyle. If you live a poor lifestyle, then have children, their genes are now going to be adapted to your poor lifestyle, and they'll inherit a poorer set of genes that have been modified for that unfavorable, unhealthy lifestyle. So this process is called epigenetics, and the way you live now will influence the way your future generations live. So having poor genetics doesn't mean it's a death sentence. It just means you have to change the way you influence those genes. It is possible to influence those genes. You're not a puppet. You can influence those genes with your diet, with your lifestyle, with your exercise, the way you de-stress, the way you sleep, with the environment you live in. All of those things will influence your genetics, your genes, and the genes will start functioning differently. And that is how you make changes in your life. You shouldn't be resigning to a fate that my genetics are like this, therefore I can't do that. So that was the point that I wanted to make. It's a you need to start making better choices, and if you make better choices, your genes will respond, and that is the whole point of genetics. Mm, one more example. So my father's family has a problem with gray hair. I didn't know any better, so I assumed that I should get gray hair, and that's what's happened. But if I had taken better care of myself when I was younger, so because my graying hair started when I was a teenager, and if I had taken better care of myself, if I'd reduced the oxidative stress on my body, then I would have had less gray hair now at 45. So now I know better, so I can teach my children how to live better, and that is what we should be doing. It doesn't mean that I'll eliminate gray hair completely, but I could have at least reduced the amount of gray hair that I've got. So this is the point that I'm making. Genetics is not a death sentence. It's just a set of tools you've been given, and you need to maintain them properly and use them in the right manner if you need to get the best results out of those tools. So that's how you should think about genetics. It's not a final thing. You can change it, and you can change it for the better for your next generation. So remember that. Thank you.